Welcome to this episode of Mercy Can't Stop Her, the podcast where we share the stories of women's resilience through chaos, crisis, and the challenges of life. I am your host, Judith Kambia Obatusa, JKO. First of all, I want to say thank you to every one of you, my listeners, those who choose this podcast out of all the other podcasts that you could listen to. You chose this one. You share it, you subscribe, you leave me reviews, you give me feedback. I thank you. I thank you for being invested in helping yourself and helping other women. So on today's episode, we continue our conversation with Mrs. Iyaiya Thomas Ofem, founder of the Evolve 360 Woman Initiative. Last episode, she talked about how as a full-time housewife, she felt very unfulfilled, and how while serving in community on the Parents Teachers Association, things began to happen that changed her life. So let's hear the rest of Iya's story.
What I will add is that throughout my self-development journey, at every point in time, God had placed older women. God had placed older women or men that will say a word. And then when I sit down to think about the conversations I have had with them, that word will be something that I'll have to run with. Wow. And then she helped me. She told me, any project you want to do, I'm here. I'll follow you up with it. So that's how I started. I was PTA secretary, running the school, sporting activities and the rest, and then running as a president too. And then the first thing, I think after 2 meetings, they asked me, she was one asking, what's your project for this year? I didn't know there usually be a project. I looked at her, I was blank. And then she said, you don't have any project? You have not thought about anything? I said, no. He said, no, this organization, at least once a year, we assist people. Your role is to guide us on what to do. Don't forget about how you're going to raise the money. Just tell us what you need us to do, and we'll work with you. I said, okay. I told them, just give me time to think about it. So that week, I think I visited her, and then we were discussing, and she made a statement. She told me, I'm going to visit an organization. Will you come with me? I said, okay, no problem. I'll drive behind you because I have to go back home from there. So we drove, and then this organization is an organization for physically challenged people. When we were there, they needed a borehole, they needed wheelchairs, and then she brought some blankets for them. She donated some blankets to them and food stuff. That Malawi usually has a period of winter from, I think, was it ending of March or July till about September, early September. Wow. So it's usually a very cold period. So she donated blankets, and then she made a statement and said, do you know that there are women in this community that don't have blankets when it's winter? I said, how? He said, because they are so poor, they only have one wrapper. When their husbands die, they use those wrappers to bury the men. And so these women sleep without blankets. I looked at her, I said, Ma, what did you say? She repeated herself. I said, okay. We finished from that organization, and I couldn't sleep again. I was wondering, in Nigeria, there's nobody in my village that is so poor that they cannot afford a wrapper for themselves. I said, the whole day I was restless after I came back. And then the next meeting, I told them, okay, we'll raise funds for blankets. So that was how we started the blanket drive. We had a target of 500 to raise money for 500 blankets. But on the long run, we were able to raise 300. And that's what we distributed for that year. So that was my project. And then when I told them that was my project, another lady came and said, somebody sent me some money from the US in case we are doing any project. What can we do with the money? I said, okay, we can construct a borehole for people. If I say I knew how money came, part of the money, I don't think I do. Because we had a dinner where we raised funds. And then a lot of Malawians donated money. A lot of people donated blankets. Even some schools donated blankets for our project. And from there, that's when I knew that there was there's something I could do with my life again, even though I was a housewife. It didn't have to end there. There was something I could still do.
And you were still a housewife.
I was
you
still
were a housewife when you were doing all these things that you just
mentioned. Yes, I was still a housewife.
Yeah.
When I was doing it. So I think that gave me the push and the confidence back. That's when I had my confidence back, that despite the fact that I was a housewife, I could achieve whatever I wanted to achieve. And stop using my family as an excuse. Stop blaming my husband for always having new jobs in a new location. And then I think at that point in time, I took responsibility for myself. I decided to stop blaming everybody, because I came to the realization that even if he had told us to move and I refused to move, nothing could have happened. He couldn't have done anything. Maybe he could have said, okay, I'll be visiting so and so time, maybe you guys should visit. But I discovered that I didn't have to blame him for anything. It was my decision. It was my choice to follow him. So there wasn't any point regretting. It was at that point I accepted responsibility for my life, because I had the clarity that it was my decision to make. I made the decision to follow him every time he got a new job. So there was no need blaming him or even regretting the decisions. I think that gave me clarity. And then the fact that even though I'm a housewife, I can do anything I want to do. Nothing stops me. I was the only one stopping myself.
This is so cool. You see, the thing about this story is that you showed up. You were willing to go to do stuff, to help. I was talking with someone yesterday, and I mentioned this thing about many times we think we're doing people a favor, but we're not actually doing the favor for the people. We're doing the favor for us.
No.
When the lady asked you, give me a ride, even though you were asking yourself all those questions, why does she want a ride? She doesn't, how do I have this relationship? You still said yes.
Yeah.
And because you said yes to her, to help her, you opened the door for your own progress.
Yeah.
So in this life, being good is not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
I was reading about the fact that recently they're saying that people who are very nice, they don't get ahead in life. Because in this culture now, you can see people who talk anyhow to people. They are the ones people are listening to. They are the ones on social media talking all kinds of things. And those who say good things, you see them being attacked. You see? But the question I was asking myself when I was just thinking about it this morning was that you cannot become what people are celebrating, even when it's not who you are. So when we talk about finding ourselves, is living in our own truth, being authentic with our life, meaning that my values will not change because I am now among women or men who think differently. So where I go and you are not allowing me to be in my elements, to live my values, I don't have to be there.
Yeah.
And another thing about your story is the power of one person who sees good in you and wants to help bring out that good in you.
Yeah.
You walked into that meeting, you didn't know anybody, and that woman just saw you and just wanted you to be her protege. You didn't go in there saying, "No, I'm looking with a microscope for a mentor."
No.
But because you respected her, you could have, maybe when you walked in, you already had somewhere you really wanted to sit. But then she said, come and sit with me. You respected her.
You did. I wanted to sit with the person that invited me for the meeting.
But you respected that woman and see all the opportunity. And when you went with her, she went to donate her blankets to this organization, not to an individual.
No.
It was in the conversation you guys were having that she mentioned these women, and that was what God had. That was the main reason for that day's outing. It was for God to plant that seed, for that seed to be planted in your heart. Because you said you could not sleep.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Really? I know about poverty, but I've not seen this level of poverty before. This is what she's talking about. And you could not rest.
Yeah.
So in the course of our lives, we may think that our lives are not okay. But I want to encourage everyone that's listening to this podcast today. Just keep showing up. Keep being good. Keep honoring other people. Keep respecting those you meet on your way. You do not know who will open the door for your destiny. And look what happened to Iyaiya. Look at how she gained her confidence back. Through service. You eventually have relocated to Nigeria. After all the things you did, built this community in Malawi, you have all these women now that are part of the people you know. Your contacts has expanded. And now you're back in Nigeria with all this knowledge. All the years you would have loved to stay in Nigeria in your corner.
Yeah.
You were grumbling and following your husband, grumbling and following him, but you followed him.
Yeah.
It's because you followed him that you had all these experiences that we're sharing now. And when you got back to Nigeria, it wasn't the Iyaiya that left Nigeria that came back. And so now...
It wasn't.
You started 2401 Crafts. When did you start 2401 Crafts?
I started it in Malawi. The zone where I get a lot of peace and quiet is when I'm doing something with my hands. It's either I'm beading, either I'm on my sewing machine to amend stuff. So that's a distraction for me. That's what distracts me from my head. Okay, I think 2016, I got a sewing machine that I used for amending the children's clothes in case it gets torn or I didn't want to replace. And then after that, in 2017, we visited Nigeria for something. And then when I was going back, I carried all my beading materials, bought more, and then I bought some fabrics. And I discovered that most of the people in my circle wanted things from Nigeria. They wanted the wrappers, they wanted the necklaces, they wanted the headgear. So when I visited, I brought back most of those things. And then I started selling in my circle. And then they were asking for more. That's how I got into production. The name came about the fact that I just said, now that I know who I am, now that my vision is becoming clearer, why not use my birthday? So I just used my birthday, which is 24th, and the birth month, which is 1st of January. That's how the 2401 came about. Then I started bidding. And then going through Facebook, I discovered that because that's the only way you keep in touch with Nigeria, what's happening in Nigeria. I discovered that the in thing was the turbans. People had started making turbans, and it was not in Malawi. That's how I went to YouTube and learned how to do it. That's how I started producing turbans. And then I started taking some online courses. I paid for some online courses done by some Nigerians. That's how I perfected the making of the turbans.
So you never stopped learning. You never stopped looking to learn.
No.
So no matter your situation, always be willing to learn. Don't stop yourself from learning. For someone like me, one of the things I do is every time I have a situation that has gone sideways, I learn something from inside that situation. I just don't want it to be a waste.
No.
Like somebody gets into somebody treats me in a particular way. I think about it. Before, I used to think about it in a negative way and I'll be sad and very sad. But now I think about it, I'm like, in Nigeria, there's a saying that if you chase a slave too much, you will chase the slave into the good house. So if you think because I'm a slave, I have no one who can support me, who can fight for me, you now treat me badly, you throw me out, they keep throwing the slave until the slave will find a good owner. So sometimes the things that are bad, I think they look bad. They are not bad. And actually, as a Christian, there's a scripture that says that all things work together for our good. I think it's Romans 8:28. All things work together for our good. Not only great, happy things, some sad, terrible. things.
Yeah,
like one would say, oh my God, your husband has done it again. You have to move again. But it worked together for your good.
A lot of people said it. A lot of people said it. Also, if I will add, in this journey that I took, or I'm still taking, I discovered that for everything that happens, just like you said, if you don't learn a lesson from it, it repeats itself. It becomes a cycle. Until you have learned your lesson from that experience, it will keep repeating itself. That's what I've discovered. I don't have any scientific proof, but I know is what happens in my life. Every time something happens and I don't learn from it, it repeats itself again. Now, for every experience I have, I take my lessons and try not to repeat and try not to repeat those mistakes or those decisions again.
Okay. So you now came back, 2401 Crafts was working. And then how did you start the Evolve 360 Women Initiative? How did it come about?
For Evolve 360, I wasn't in Nigeria when I started it. We were still in Malawi. Okay. I had traveled to, I think I was in Seattle then. In the hotel where we were, it was a shared living. So when you want breakfast is provided, but you have to come to the restaurant or the kitchen or refectory or whatever it's called. You prepare your breakfast yourself.
Okay.
I usually come down for breakfast, then lunch, we go and look for where to eat. It was, I think, a 5-day trip. The first 2 days, I came back, I was lying on the bed, and then the thought just occurred to me. In this place where you are, a lot of women have helped you. Why not start up something that at least use the stories of other women to show other women that no matter the situation they find themselves, they can still succeed at life? Why not share your story? Okay, if you don't want to share your story, why not help another woman see things differently? So that was a thought that was going in my head that day. And then I have a book, a hardcover. I've even doubled 2. It's not finished. The leaves are not finished. I've not finished writing on it, but I still double them. I usually process my thoughts through writing. I usually write when I'm sad, when I'm happy, and I write. And then I started writing the aims, the objectives, how it's supposed to run. And then I wasn't in Nigeria, I was in Malawi. I didn't know how it was going to work out. So I called my sister-in-law and I told her, this is what I'm thinking. I had this thought for a long time. I didn't think of sharing it with anybody because I never shared anything with anybody. And then I called her and she said, why not? Don't worry. I said, but I'm not in Nigeria. I said, don't worry, I can organize it. Don't worry. I can take care of it. Just tell me what to do. I said, okay, but she asked me if I would be around that period. I said yes. And so I came in. I think I came in a week before the event. She had mobilized people. She had done everything. All I needed to do was just to be present. Wow. So that's how it started.
That's so good. And now you're impacting all these lives. I was so intrigued. And you started Evolve 360 Women Initiative a few months to the pandemic. How courageous of you. And then you kept on. Even you did the 2020 in the pandemic. So that was so good. I noticed that the first Evolve 360 Women Initiative, you had 96 women and 6 men. Tell us about that.
Because it was something new. I had used, I think 2 months, I was on social media putting out flyers about it. Most people heard it through Facebook. Okay. And then my sister-in-law has sent out letters to some organizations in the village. And then there were people that were inbox telling me that they want to participate. Okay, it was just Facebook, Instagram, and then word of mouth.
So how did men get involved?
One of the award recipients was not from my village, but she was from my local government. And she's a military personnel. So I think most of the men that came in were her security detail. Okay. But they didn't wait outside. They sat in till the event finished.
That was so cool. You normally have Evolve 360 Woman Initiative. You have it every year around August, September?
August. Oh.
Okay. So you have it in August. What does Evolve 360 Woman do apart from the conferences? Could you give us just a snippet of some of those lives that you've impacted from the numbers that you kind of shared with me when we're talking before the podcast? I noticed something in 2019, you had more of women, and 2020, you were looking at adolescents. Is there maybe you want to share a little bit about that, why that shift?
Okay. The idea for Evolve 360 was for women from 18 to about 45. That was our target at that point in time. Mm-hmm. And what we had in mind was talking about gender-based violence, sexually transmitted disease, condom use, and then effective communication. But then we discovered that there were people within our community that had businesses that weren't really growing because they had no one to talk to them about financial management. And then most of them feed from those businesses that sometimes they might need a little push to improve the business. So in the process of talking to people, getting needs assessment before the conference, that's when we discovered that giving out some money to these women is going to help them. So we decided that we'll pick women that we know are struggling in business. So we have experts, people that are experts of financial management that are from my community because they need to speak my language so that these women understand. Mm. So these people are the ones that talk to these women about financial management, teach them how to manage their resources, how to differentiate between their capital, profit, and then all the little things about succeeding as a small business owner. So that's what we added to aside the conferences. And then the young girls, we discovered that most of them were in homes that they couldn't talk to their parents. Okay. No matter what happens to them, they can't talk to anybody because one, they are shy. Two, they weren't brought up to talk about their problems. Mm-hmm. So we have some volunteers that talk to these young girls. Okay. So if a young girl has a problem, because most of them are sexually harassed, just because they are girls. Yeah. So if they think that somebody is giving them undue attention that they don't like, we have volunteers that they can talk to without disclosing anybody's identity. So these volunteers help them to how is it articulate? Mm-hmm. Or help them to be outspoken so that they know that if somebody does something is wrong, no matter the person's age, you should be able to tell them that what they are doing is wrong and you're going to report them to the authorities. Good. So that's what we have done with the young girls. In 2020, because of COVID, so we decided that for the older women, we might not be able to manage them because some of them are older than us. And then they'll come in with that mentality that I'm older than you, what can you tell me? Mm-hmm. So we decided to have a workshop for adolescents. So in that workshop, they were taught financial management, they were spoken to about gender-based violence. We had a pre-assessment of what they wanted. And then after the workshop, we asked them also what their anticipation. And then we discovered that most of them needed finances. Some of them have learned skills that they didn't have resources to start the businesses. That's why we decided that if you can use this amount to start up a small scale business for yourself as a young person.
And that's what you did in 2020. Yeah. So you did female empowerment, basically. The girls built their self-esteem building, confidence building workshops. You did a lot of that to help the young girls that were being harassed. It's not just for the conference. These volunteers are in the community throughout the year, and this is ongoing. If somebody wanted to support the work that you do, how can they reach you?
Evolve 360 is on Instagram as Evolve 360 Woman. And then on Facebook, it has a page, Evolve 360 Woman Initiative. The reason for the woman is the fact that our target is not every woman. If at the end of the day, it's just one woman that achieves something, we know that whatever she achieves is going to trigger down to other women. Because if she's able to gain her confidence, have a clear vision of what she wants about her life, she can be able to influence other women. That's why we have the Woman Day.
So it's Evolve 360 Woman. It's not women. And that's why. Because you Evolve 360 and you're one woman. And look at you now, you're impacting all these lives. So if you're a woman out there, you are enough. You don't need to be plenty of women to make a difference. And if you don't have a day job, you're not going out to go and work in an office or business, doesn't mean that you're not doing something. Wherever we are, we can start with what we've got. So thank you so much. Evolve 360 Woman details will be in the show notes. And you can reach Iyaiya Thomas Ofem. You can reach her through Facebook Messenger on Evolve 360 Woman Initiative page, or IG, you can DM her on Instagram on the Evolve 360 Woman Instagram page. So before you go, if you wanted to talk to one woman out there.
What I usually tell every woman I come in contact with, I always tell them they are enough. I say you are enough as a woman, you're enough as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, as a friend. If you want to change because you have to, not because somebody wants you to change. Because sometimes people project what they want on you, but that's not who you are. And also the fact that whatever you want to achieve, you can achieve it. It's all a mindset. Once you can change your mindset and believe in yourself that you can achieve it, you will achieve whatever you want to achieve. Because sometimes it's not about money, like you said from the beginning. What do you want? Who is in your corner? Who is that voice that speaks to you and you listen? And how intuitive are you? Because sometimes people might be talking and your thoughts are all over the place. But if you're intuitive, somebody says something and you pick a word from what the person has said. That's what I tell women.
That's so good.
No woman needs to compete. You don't need to compete with anybody. If somebody is doing something you feel you should achieve, reach out to the person and let them teach you. It's either a yes or no. That's what I tell my daughters. Always learn to ask. Learn to ask. It's either a yes or a no. And even if it's a no, it's not about you. It's their decision. It's about them. It's not about you. It's not about your person. It's the fact that they have decided that this is not what I want to share with you. So always ask.
That's so good. So if you're a listener to this podcast and you are in that place where you don't know what to do, you can see from Iyaiya's story, she may not have known what to do from the beginning, but she didn't stop herself from being there for others. She still went out, went to those PTA, Parent Teachers Association meetings. In some other places, they call them Parent Council, Parent Advisory Council. So just don't stop showing up. Don't give up on yourself. And like she said, if you don't know, if you maybe all around you, those who are speaking are not speaking positive, they are speaking negative. You can go online and hear someone speaking positive. And though Evolve 360 Woman Initiative is currently working in Nigeria, you can reach out to Iyaiya. And she has a lot of experience. She may be able, I know not me, she will be able to give you a word or two that can make a difference. We all need someone who is speaking into our lives, who is speaking positively into our lives, who is telling us we can when we are not too sure about it. It makes a whole lot of difference. And I want to thank you, Iyaiya, for coming on this podcast today to tell us your story and also share the great work you're doing. Please, I'm looking forward to another time with you in the future. Okay. But for now, if you're listening to this podcast, thank you for listening to the Mercy Can't Stop Her podcast. Mercy couldn't stop Iya. Mercy can't stop you too.
Yeah, have a good day. Mercy can't stop you. Thank you for having me.
What an amazing time we've had with Iya. There are so many nuggets of wisdom in this episode, and I have listed them on the show notes so that you can actually go and read them and remind yourself of how much value we can give the world when we stand up in our most authentic self, not trying to be what people want us to be, but be who we really are. And we don't need to be many to make a difference. Each of us in our little spaces, no matter how little you think your space or your sphere of influence is, you have what it takes to make a difference. Start with what you have: your voice, your compassion, your kindness, your arms, your feet, your heart. You are good enough and you have value. Last week, I mentioned that there was a big announcement I was going to make on this episode. However, I'm not able to give you all the details today because of certain things that happened during the week. So please, I will be giving you that announcement on next episode. Last episode, I talked about this being transitional to season 3. So we're going to be listening to interviews with certain people. And next week, we'll be listening to an interview with a veteran of the United States Army, a doctor, and a beauty queen, all in one. So looking forward to spending time with you next week on Mercy Can't Stop Her. Remember, you are enough. And if you stand in that knowledge, mercy won't stop you. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.